Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? First of all, thanks to Human and you guys for having me. As said, my name is Philipp. I'm with Polygon, the BD director for Europe, Middle East and Africa. And today I want to talk a little bit with you guys about loyalty programs. But before we do that, maybe for the ones in the room that don't know about Polygon, what are we doing? So the mission is to become the value layer of the internet, but more easy, I would say, to scale blockchain to the masses. And probably even a week ago, I would have said like scaling Ethereum to the masses, but things have changed a little since then. So I don't know who saw the news, but last week we announced that we're collaborating with the Near Foundation on a prover to actually settle WASM chains also on Ethereum. And then actually right now, as we speak at DevConnect in Istanbul, we announced that OKX is building in L2 on Polygon as well. So a lot of consolidation happening here and a lot of scaling via Polygon, which is why I'm happy to say, you know, our task is to actually scale blockchain technology in general to the masses. Then a little bit more context about what my team and I are trying to do. Basically, we are working with the big brands out there from the legacy space and help them to transition from Web 2 to Web 3. So the likes of a Nike, a Starbucks, DHL, Lufthansa's of the world, but also in sports, the ATP Tennis Tour, FC Barcelona. So these are the brands that my team and I are working with to help them move into the Web 3 space. And I think what's really important, what has changed is that this by now is not a crypto stunt anymore. It's not a PR thing, right? But what these brands are really trying to explore is how to implement the blockchain technology into their business model, just like any other technology before, right? So they had to think about, how do I implement the internet into my business model? E-commerce, mobile, all these things. And now they look at blockchain technology just like any other technology to implement into their business model. So while we're going to talk today about some specifics of Web 2 models of loyalty programs and Web 3, there's so much more that I would love to share with you, but because of the limited time we can't, so I can only highly encourage you to scan that QR code and have a look at the report that we put out there with our friends from Reddit, Salesforce, and MediaMonks about the future of loyalty. And I think, you know, with all the insights that we have already working with these big brands, there's something for everyone in there. Now, let's actually dive into loyalty programs. And while we're not going to speak today about the specific content of one of these programs, I still thought it's going to be a good idea to actually start off with, you know, showing you some of the names that we're working with, just to basically point out that today's talk is not theoretical in nature anymore. It's out there, it's live, and it's big brands running these kind of programs. So you see, for example, Starbucks. Last I checked, I think they have roughly 38 million customers signed onto their legacy loyalty program, which I think is one of the biggest, if not the biggest in the world. And they have launched Starbucks Odyssey in parallel as the Web 3 loyalty program. Another one that was launched this year is with Lufthansa and the Star Alliance Group. I think their legacy program is in similar size, 32 million customers, something like that. And they have launched the Uptrip loyalty program in Web 3. And then last but not least, here on the slide you see Nubank. Maybe some of you don't know them, but they are actually the biggest fintech in Latin America with some 70 million customers. And they have actually created Newcoin, which is part of their loyalty program in Web 3. So all to say, it's big brands, it's already live, and it's not a niche in terms of geography because we've actually covered now the Americas, Latin America, the EU, and also Asia Pacific. Right, so now let's actually dive into what are loyalty programs And then I want to talk a little bit about pain points as they exist today and how blockchain technology can actually either improve upon them or solve these problems entirely. So first of all, a loyalty program is nothing else but a marketing tool, full stop, right? So what it tries to do is to increase sales and at the same time, ideally, that's also why the name, to retain customers and make them loyal. And the reason for these big brands to do this is based on these numbers that you see there, is that customers are more willing to buy a product from a company that offers a loyalty program than if they wouldn't. Actually, 84% are more likely to buy a product from such a company. But then once they have signed on to a loyalty program, they also spend up to 3.5 times more, or they do 3.5 times more transactions when they are actually signed on to a loyalty program if they were not. So the incentive for a big brand is very, very easy to say why they are doing this. However, there's some irony to that, because these programs, if you're looking under the hood, are actually not really about loyalty. And that is also based on numbers. As you can see, that 71% of consumers actually have switched brands at least once over the last 12 months. So what that means is the people that sign on to the loyalty program 2.0 right now are actually more interested in transactions, right? In a transactional nature with brands. And that's actually the customers that are of least value to big brands. So another big thing that is really important for context, why big brands are now looking into Web3 for loyalty programs, is the upcoming generation of the customer base, which is Gen Z. And Gen Z is to make up 40% of the consumer base by 2026. And Generation Z, what they want to do is actually move on from purely transactional. They want to be engaged with brands. They want some exclusivity. They want some gamification. They just want more out of a collaboration with a brand, and in return for their loyalty. So some brands already realize that, which is why they are already building these kinds of programs, and others, I think, should have a look at that starting now. The structure that I want to use now to go through is actually going through 5 pain points that exist now in the Web 2.0 world with loyalty programs, and then move to how can Web3 improve upon them. So the first pain point right now is that customer acquisition costs really, really skyrocketed over the last couple of years. And that is due to the deprecation of web cookies, but also because of changes in policies of operating systems like iOS or Android. The other thing is that return on advertising spend really went down. So that's a big problem for these brands, and we'll get to how Web3 can help improve upon them. A second pain point is that there really is a lack of engagement. You can see the number here that only 20% of the rewards that customers are entitled to are actually redeemed. And that's obviously not what you want to see when you're running a loyalty program. Pain point number 3 is that giving away free product, which, yes, is the value add that you need to bring to customers in a loyalty program, but that really eats into your margin. And with the problem of the customer acquisition costs going up and inflation over the last couple of years, I mean, these companies are all driven by their P&L and by the bottom line. So if margins are really hurt, it makes them overthink whether they continue running these kind of programs. Pain point number 4 is that partnerships are manual and the tech lift is heavy. What does it mean? Think about 2 listed companies that want to collaborate. That's a lot of legal work, contracts. They might be on different tech stacks. So it's pretty difficult. And then the last pain point that I want to raise today is that it's actually very hard to get a 360 view of your customer in a status quo, because they could be shopping your brand at a physical store. You have no idea who they are. Ideally, they are shopping in your own e-commerce, then you get some data, but they could also enter via a third-party application, and again, you have no clue who your customer is. So moving over to how does blockchain technology actually help there? And is it just a fad, or can it actually help? So let's go back to the first point, the customer acquisition costs. How can Web3 help there? So I think by now we all learned that basically blockchain is about removing intermediaries. And removing intermediaries always reduces costs. That's one point. But I think even more important is that the technology now gives you other options how to do customer acquisitions. Let's just bring up free mints or airdrops. And one, I think, a good example here is, and that's not even me being biased because it's not from our ecosystem, is a free mint that Manchester United did. The numbers were roughly 1 million fans actually signed up for that free mint. That means direct to consumer relationship for United to these 1 million fans, right? So I think that's something that's just new because of the technology, and it really helps bringing customer acquisition costs down. Then we had the lack of engagement. So we all know, because we are still part of a small community, that engagement usually in Web3 is higher than in Web2 anyway. But obviously you cannot hope for this to stay true once we actually scale for the masses. However, there is now something else also again through the technology, that we have provable scarcity in Web3, that we have true ownership of digital assets, and all that obviously makes it more interesting to engage with these kind of assets than in a world where you don't really own and where nothing is really scarce. Point number 3 was giving away free product, eating into your margin, which is a big problem. And I think the solution here is even a combination of the point number 3 with the margin, but also the partnerships. Because everyone is on the same tech stack, that is the Ethereum virtual machine or even the SVM or extended versions of that, it's really easy to pull off collaborations. And that, maybe as an example, again, not from our ecosystem, is that, for example, a hotel chain offered a discount to the holders of the Porsche NFT. The interesting piece here is that the hotel chain never spoke once to the hotel chain, to Porsche. And another example from our ecosystem here is with Lufthansa, that the language course online Bubble thought, you know what, the Lufthansa customer group is actually really, really interesting for us. So let's bring in the value add for the Lufthansa clients from our end, because it's really interesting to tap into the customer group. And obviously for Lufthansa, that was really interesting because the value add was not coming from their margin anymore, but actually from a partner. And that is only possible because everyone is running on the same tech stack, everyone is using smart contracts. So what before was very manual, right, and was very hard to pull off, now is super easy. And then the last point was the 360 view of the customer. So I think we need to admit that yes, technology still needs to evolve there, but the option of token gate experiences, whether it's in real world or whether it's on your own e-commerce store or via a third-party application, really gives you the opportunity that you can actually have a 360 view of your customer. And even if it's not personal data, but data that is coming from wallets, makes it enables you to actually analyze it and gives a lot of value. This is actually what I wanted to talk about just in terms of the programs of Web3. But one more slide that I want to show you is because sometimes there's the misperception in the market that Polygon or other protocols are actually building these products. We don't, right? But by now, because we have all these insights into these use cases, we have now a long list of partners that we feel are gold standard, that if you want to look into these kind of things, that can actually do this work for you. So you see names on here like Forum 3, it's the company behind actually the Starbucks Odyssey program. You see Syndicate on here, which is a tech stack behind the Nikes.Swoosh program. You have Hang XYZ, they are working with Budweiser in the US on loyalty programs. So all I'm saying here, there are experts now that existed in the Web2 world to help you if you are a brand and you want to pull off a certain project in the Web3 world, to actually realize all these improvements for your brands if you're interested in it. Thank you very much.